So, I played every character in Dynasty Warriors 3 and got all of their 4th weapons. But which characters, in my opinion, are the best from this game? Now, just a few guidelines before jumping in on how I rank these characters. There are 6 categories that I'm ranking these characters on. We've got AoE capabilities, dueling, Muso, ease of use, kit rating, and then finally their attack and movement speed. I'm going to average all these numbers out of a ranking of 10, and I came up with 10 or 12 that I believe are the best from the game based on my experience. Every character that I use, I put them in the same situation on the same map with the same items and see how they did as I played with them. So starting off at number 12, this character was given a rating of 8.3 out of 10. Fu Shi. He was actually a lot better than I thought he was, and when I played with him, he was really easy to use. Starting off with the AoE capabilities, he was a 10 out of 10. This dude has a giant sword, and his square string is a great sweep. His Musa was really easy. I mean, I was ripping through people, and I only have him like halfway upgraded with stat. His dueling capabilities, Fu Shi had an 8.5 feeling. I like most of what he did. His, the red Muso counter spam would be an easy win. I was absolutely shredding people, no problem. And then his Muso, I gave him a solid 10 out of 10. This character's Muso is probably among the safest in the game. Ease of use, I gave him an 8 out of 10. I think his speed is going to make him tough to use. And then his kit rating, I gave him a 7.5. Like I said, square string and the Muso is top notch. His C's are okay, but nothing useful except maybe the C4. Jump attack is really bad. And then his attack and movement speed, this is where the character falls short. Only getting a 6 out of 10. The character's not very fast, and you're not going to do a lot of fast damage with him. Moving on to my second honorable mention, we have Mr. Yuan Shao. Yuan Shao across the board is actually tied with the first 3 numbers on my list, so 8, 9, 10. They all have the same technical rating, but I put Yuan Shao lower because he would be the one that I would not want to play versus the other 3. His AoE capabilities, I gave him a 7. He has a really good C6, very good AoE. He's fast enough to get there and do a lot of damage. And his C3 and C4, they're decent. They have some good AoE properties on top of it. Dueling capabilities for Yuan Shao, I gave him a solid 9 out of 10. I think most characters with a sword do well in dueling. And then his Muso, very good Muso. He only lost a point on me because of the vulnerability that he has at the end of his Muso. But I like the little end where he has like the swing and he has another swing. Nice little add-on to knock them away even further, creating more distance so he can get away. Ease of use, I gave him an 8.5. I mean, he's straightforward. He's really easy to use. He's a sword user. He's not too difficult to use at all. His kit rating, I gave him a 9. Most of his moves are pretty good. He's got really good speed. C6 is really good as well. I mean, he's got a really, really solid kit. Maybe his C5 and C3 is the only ones that really aren't that great. And then his speed, I gave him a 9 out of 10. Overall, he's a pretty fast character. You can do damage. You can get out fast. And with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about the top 10 best characters, in my opinion, from Dynasty Warriors 3. Alright, coming in at number 10. Might be a little shocking. Same rating as Yuan Shao. 8.6 out of 10 is what this character averaged out to be. And that's going to be Miss Oder Chow. I was actually quite surprised to see how fun she was to use on a very hard difficulty. Her lowest category, starting off with the AoE capabilities, is this one with only a 7 out of 10. Her C3, C4, her square string, and her Muso, they're all good. The AoEs off of these attacks aren't super reliable, but it's still there. They're comfortable, but you can get pounced on pretty quickly if you rely on those C's. That's why I gave her a 7 out of 10. Moving into the dueling capability, she is one of the best ones when it comes to dueling, giving her a 9.5 out of 10. You can really pester enemies really easy with her. Her attack speed is off the charts. C3 is a deadly to combo with, and then her Muso is also a really good counter as well. But dueling, just using the square string, you're going to do pretty well with Da Chiao. Moving into her Muso, it's decent, but she has a very vulnerable ending, but she's fast enough to get out, and her jump attack is pretty good as well. 8.5 rating for her Muso. Kit rating, overall, I would give her a 9. Again, her square string is great, super good, super friendly. C6 is not good. You're just too vulnerable. You're in one spot. C5 is decent for duels. The Muso is deadly at the end. I think it's decent. And then everything else for her kit, I think, fits her really well. And then finally, her speed. Again, this is her best asset, in my opinion, giving her a 9.5 out of 10. She's not as fast as Xiao Chao, but she is really, really fast. I think Xiao Chao is the fastest character in the game. Next up, coming in at number 9, same rating overall as the first As the previous two, we've got Mr. Cao Cao. For his AoE capabilities, I gave him a 7.5 out of 10. It's mainly from his Musou and his C4, which are really good to use. And then the C6 is extremely powerful as well, but it is tough to aim and it's very tough in crowds. I only use it if I know for sure I am on the right path to use it, or else I'm going to pay for using it. His dueling capabilities is really good. 9.5 out of 10. Very easy to combo with. C5 out the wazoo. His C6, not super reliable, but if you can hit it, it does really well. And he has a very easy counter with his red Musou. You can bully people with his speed and juggle them, and he's got very good dueling capabilities. Moving over to his Musou, I gave him an 8.5 out of 10. He's a very good Musou, very safe. He clears out most people around him. The only problem is that he leaves him vulnerable if someone comes from behind him or if it is blocked, because they close in pretty fast. Now moving into his ease of use, I gave Cao Cao an 8 out of 10, only because if you're fighting a group of enemies and you're trying to use Cao Cao, you're going to feel that he is not that great with a giant crowd. Moving into his kit rating, I gave him overall a 9 out of 10. Again, not good under pressure. His speed really helps him get out of situations though. For me, the C3 is the only bad move, and then again with his C6 going offline, you're going to pay if you end up doing that. And then moving into his speed overall, gave him a 9 out of 10. His attack speed is very good, very aggressive, and fast enough. His movement speed is also really good as well, definitely above average. For me personally, he's a little bit safer to play than Da Xiao in my opinion. Moving on to number 8. Coming in at number 8, we've got Cao Cao's counterpart himself, Mr. Liu Bei. Like I said, the sword users in this game, they were given some pretty good stuff. Starting off with the AoE capabilities with Liu Bei, I'm giving him a 9 out of 10. I think his square string is really good. Musou is absolutely great, and his C6, I think, with the little like energy blast is really good for him. Moving into the dueling, same thing I gave Cao Cao because they have pretty much the same weapon, is a 9.5 out of 10. You're fast enough to do consistent damage, and you can easily counter with a red Musou with him. It's so easy to counter. Jump attack is easy to abuse as well. You can get around people. Liu Bei's got a really good dueling kit. Moving into his Musou, I gave him an 8.5. It's a really good Musou. Very big sweeps. It clears out most, and you can change directions from both of the ending swipes, so you can clear out your front, you can clear out your back, and then find a way out. And the only thing that I found problematic with it is that if the enemies are close by or you miss them in midair and they get up, when you finish your attack, they will be all over you. And then moving into the ease of use, I gave Liu Bei a 7 out of 10. He is pretty tough to use under pressure, but if you have really good reflexes and you can block, you are going to be in a good spot. But I think for most players, he would be tough to use under pressure. Moving into his overall kit rating, I gave him a 9 out of 10. Kit is very solid. Musou's really good. Most of his Cs are useful, and the only dangers that he has in his kit is maybe the C3 and the C4. You don't even really need to use them, but if you do use them, that's probably where you're going to find a lot of your problems. And then moving into his speed, very simple, gave him an 8.5 out of 10. I think his speed for both attack and movement speed is slightly above average, and that's all I have for Mr. Liu Bei. Now moving into number 7, I gave this character overall an 8.75 out of 10. And that's going to be the young mastermind himself, Mr. Lu Xun. Starting off with his AoE capabilities, we have a 7.5 out of 10 rating for him. His C4 is deadly good. It's arguable. It's on the same level as Cao Cao's C6 because it still has a danger when you land off of the C4, but it's still so freaking good. His C3 is okay. Musou is decent, and his square string isn't too bad, but it's nothing that makes you feel too safe when you play him in terms of an AoE capability standpoint. That's why I gave him a 7.5. Moving into the dueling, I think he's a great juggler. Gave him an 8.5 out of 10 overall. His C4 does a lot of damage. You can stay on your target without having to worry about going offline. Musou is great for the counter. His C3 is really good, and his square string is good as well. You can really just rely on your square string for Lu Xun and do just fine. And then moving into his Musou, I gave him a 9 out of 10. He has a really good Musou. He could be vulnerable at the end, but for the most part, it's an overall pretty good Musou. Then moving into his ease of use, also gave him a 9 out of 10. He's a pretty straightforward character. The only thing, just like I said about the other characters, is that he's tough under big crowd pressure. So if you have a lot of people around you, it's going to be hard to really get them off of you. And then for his kit rating, I gave him a 9.5 out of 10. C4 is really good. Attack speed is the only thing about the kit that can be tough. Not saying that it's not that great, but it can put you in a situation where characters who are faster than you can do more damage to you. And then last but not least, for his overall speed, I gave Lu Xun a 9 out of 10. His movement speed is super fast, and his attack speed for me is slightly above average, but there are moments where if you use a C or if you use the end of his thing, it's harder for him to recover fast enough before he gets dinged. Now moving into number 6, right before we hit the top 5, this character had a rating overall of 8.9 out of 10, and that's going to be the splendid Ma Chao. Ma Chao is a great character in this game. He was absolutely a blast to play with. And starting off with his AoE capabilities, Mr. Ma Chao gave him a 9 out of 10. His square string is so good. That's really all you need for this character, and his Musou. His attack speed is what makes it so good. His C6 is really good too, but it's just a little slow to do it, but it is really good. For dueling, I gave him a 9.5 out of 10. He's a very fast attacker. Juggling with him, his C5 is super easy, and his Musou is decent for counters, but it can leave you vulnerable. And going right into it, his Musou rating I gave him was an 8.5 out of 10. He's got a good Musou, but it can be vulnerable if you miss the airborne enemy, or if they're blocking. Let's say you hit them with the first part, they come down, they come up, and then you do the little jump up spin thing, and they're already like standing up and blocking. That can put you in a situation where you'll take some damage. Moving into the ease of use for this character, I gave him an 8.5 out of 10. His C3 and C4 could lead players to getting whooped, but his speed of the character is good to be safe most times. Moving over to his kit rating, I gave him a 9 out of 10. The only thing bad, like I already mentioned, is his C3 and C4. And then finally, his speed, I gave him a 9 out of 10. His attack speed is crazy good. Movement speed is a little bit above average, but that attack speed, you can use it to abuse your enemies so easily. Go ahead and move on to the top 5. All right, coming in at number 5, we've got a solid ranking here. 9 out of 10 overall ranking for this character on the dot. It's going to be Mr. Poster Boy himself. Okay, starting off with AoE capabilities, Zhao Yun, Mr. Perfect, gets a perfect score on it. 10 out of 10 for his AoE capabilities. Great sweeping moves. He can hit all enemies in front, and he leaves no fear to swing. Moving into dueling, he's great one-on-one. Gave him a 9 out of 10. His jump attack is really good. You can use it to take advantage. The only thing is that his slow speed with his square string could make it tough against faster opponents. Moving into his Musou, giving him an 8.5 out of 10. It's really good when everyone is in front. However, it leaves opening after the Musou for people to close in and do damage. It's a very good counter Musou as well. Moving into the ease of use, I gave him a 10 out of 10. His kit is super easy. You don't really even need to use any of his C's. You can honestly just sit with his square string and your Musou ready to counter, and you're good. And then his kit rating, I gave him an overall 9 out of 10. For me, his C6 isn't that great. Jump attack is good, square string is good. And then moving into his speed, this is going to be his lowest category, which is going to be a 7.5 out of 10. His attack speed is average, which leaves opening to get smacked quickly, but it's decent. Same with the walking speed, it's average. Enough to get away, but it's not like super quick. And then that's all I have for Mr. Poster Boy at number 5. Moving on to number 4. All right, coming in at number 4, this guy beat out Zhao Yun by 0.08 of an average. He's got a 9.08 or 9.1 average rating. So coming in at number 4, we have Mr. Gan Ning. Gan Ning's a pretty fun character to play with. He's very destructive. Starting off with the AoE, we've got a 9 out of 10 rating for him. Musou, absolutely destructive. Square string is awesome, and his C4 for him isn't that bad at all. Moving into his dueling, we got a 9.5 out of 10 for him. He feels so powerful when dueling. He's just destructive. His Musou counter is OP. His damage, attack speed's great. Everything for this character fits really well for a one-on-one duel. Jumping right into his Musou as well. 9 out of 10 rating. Great power, AoE destruction. The only thing that is the downfall is that it is hard to control. Trying to get more than one hit on a specific person takes a little bit of skill, which can be hard to do. Moving over to his ease of use, which is going to be an 8.5 out of 10 for me. It's pretty easy to use. His Musou, I think, would be harder for newer people to use under pressure. Moving into his kit rating, I gave him a 9 out of 10. C3 is not that great, would not rely on it. C6 is okay, but I'm not going to rely on that as well. Everything else for the character I said was great. Moving into his speed, 9.5 out of 10. Like I said earlier, he is so fast. Movement and attack wise, you can really abuse other generals in a 1v1 duel just by closing in on them when they get up and doing damage. I mean, it's really easy to take advantage of other characters using Gan Ning. Absolutely destructive. All right, moving into number 3. Might be a surprising number here, but she made it up, and that's going to be Miss OG herself, Miss Sun Shangzhang. Now, Sun Shangzhang shares the exact same rating as the number 2 character, and I just think the this number 2 character is just a little bit safer to play as. Starting off with her AoE capabilities, I gave her a 9 out of 10. Muso is a great AoE. Her C3 and C4 is really good as well. They're very, very fast, so you can take advantage of it. I mean, everything around you is covered in her C3 and C4, and her Muso, absolutely destructive. For her dueling capabilities, I gave her an 8.5 out of 10. Her attack speed helps a lot, and her Muso is great, but I find her getting a little vulnerable at times with the 1v1 if you don't get there fast enough. But either way, still a really decent duelist. You can get a lot done with her. Moving into her Muso, 8.5 out of 10. Muso is great. Tons of AoE. It clears out all the enemies around you so you can reposition. The only problem with it is the vulnerability at the end as she brings her chakrams back in. But other than that, it is absolutely devastating to use. It's a great counter attack as well. And then moving into her ease of use, 9.5 out of 10. The only difficult thing about her kit is the C5. Same thing with her kit rating, the exact same thing. 9.5 out of 10, great all around except for her C5. And then finally her speed, I gave her a 10 out of 10. Very fast attack speed and very, very quick on the movement. She's one of those characters you can beam in and out of crowds or towards a general and you'll be fine. You can close in on crossbowmen, but you're not going to find many problems with her speed. Next up, coming in at number 2, we got a surprising number here. He surprised me when I was playing with him because when I went to go get his 4th weapon, I was struggling. I went back and played again with him, and this time I had a great time. He was ripping through people. Coming in number 2, we've got Mr. Sun Quan. So starting off with his AoE capabilities, we got a 9 out of 10 for the Prince himself. He surprisingly has a very good AoE. Square string is really good, covers a lot of people in front of you. Muso is really good. C4 is amazing, and his C6 is actually pretty decent since the energy comes out in front of him instead of splitting or being in a narrow path. Very, very good. Then going into his dueling, I gave him a 9.5 out of 10. I didn't really feel any struggles against a 1v1. I mowed down pretty much any general I fought. C5 is super easy to juggle with, and his C4, along with his Muso, is really good too. Red Muso counter, you're going to do so much damage with Sun Quan. Moving into his Muso, I gave him a 9 out of 10. Great big sweeps. AoE is awesome. The only thing, again, is the slight vulnerability at the end that most characters have. Moving into the ease of use, 9.5 out of 10 for this character. He's super beginner friendly. Character rips through most without really trying. Like, I really didn't have any trouble with his character being alone, fighting hordes of enemies. He was really easy to use. Piggybacking off of that into his kit rating, his 9.5. C4 is so crazy good. It's so good. It swings forward and backwards, covering enemies running up on you. With the sword users, with Yuan Shao and I believe Cao Cao and Liu Bei, they go forward, but they don't go backwards. Sun Quan's the only person that goes backwards on his tech. So when people are coming up from behind you, they hit those people, so you are just clear. It's so freaking good. C5 you can juggle with. His jump attack is good. He's a basic character in terms of his movement, but he's really, really good. And then finally, his speed, I gave him an 8.5 out of 10. Movement speed is good, above average. Attack speed is average, and it makes for an easy playthrough. Shocked me seeing how easy and fun it was to play as Sun Quan with his 4th weapon and all that stuff, but I absolutely ripped through people with him, and that's why he's here at number 2 for me. Try him out. And then finally coming in at number 1, shouldn't be too surprising when it comes to most top 10s of being the best at something. Shouldn't be too strange. This character always finds his way to come up here, and that's going to be Mr. Lu Bu. So I was skeptical at first of using Mr. Lu Bu because I was like, let's see, this is old, you know, this is the old game. Yeah, he was semi-hyped up, but you know, let's see how good he was. No, he cleared it. He had a 9.67 rating out of 10. Starting off with his AoE, 10 out of 10. Dude sweeps everything. His square string is godlike. It covers both ends of the screen when you're playing. His C6 is so destructive you can pull it off. His speed is fast enough to do so, which gives him an advantage. Dueling, 9.5 out of 10. Jump attack is the only caveat. He was strong enough with a ×2 attack to break the guard of playable characters on a normal string attack. I was just bullying people. It was so easy. Going into his Muso, just like I said with the previous one, with a ×2 attack, he has a breakable ending. Most characters can't do that. The attack can be hard to pin down a specific group of people or crossbows. So the group of like crossbows, if you approach them, they obviously scatter because his Muso star is kind of pinpointed. Moving into his ease of use, 10 out of 10. He's the easiest character to sweep with, square string. He's so fast. His movement is so fast. I mean, absolutely one of the easiest characters to pick up and play. Kit rating, I gave him a 9 out of 10 because I'm not a fan of his C3, C4, and his C5. I don't think they're that good. It leaves you a little vulnerable, puts you in places in the middle of the group you don't want to be. And then coming in with the last rating, speed's going to be a 10 out of 10. It's kind of crazy how fast he moves. and how fast his attack speed is. Lubu tops the chart again as the best character from Dynasty Warriors 3. Anyway, guys, it's gonna be it for my list here. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Were you surprised to see any characters up here? Were you surprised to not see some characters up here? Let me know down below. These are just off of my subjective opinions and just my experience playing with each character, getting their 4th weapons, and then doing the tests for each of them. They all have the same weapon. I try to make it as fair as possible. Let me know down below what you guys think. If you enjoyed it, definitely appreciate a like, comment, or subscribe. Definitely helps out the channel a lot. Appreciate you all if you watched this far, and I will see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching, everyone.